Welcome to another episode of the Skinfluence Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Dustin Portela. Today, we have a guest episode. We are bringing on two guests, a first for the Skinfluence Podcast. Our first guest is Michael Chang. He is the founder and CEO of a company called Telehealth. It is a telehealth platform redefining how patients access prescription skincare. He founded the company after his own journey with acne, where he had difficulty getting the treatment that ultimately would clear him up, and that was Accutane. Seeing a need that was unmet in the market, he started an online telehealth company that uses only board-certified dermatologists to fulfill prescriptions. And they are able to do Accutane over telehealth. They have dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's to make this a viable platform where you can get top-level care and Accutane. Our second guest is Dr. Aaron Farberg. He is the medical director of Telehealth. He is a board-certified dermatologist and a personal friend of mine. He has 10 practice locations in the Dallas, Texas area. He is a board-certified dermatologist and Mohs surgeon. He also runs clinical trials. And Dr. Farberg brought his expertise to Telehealth to make sure that the way that they do things, using only board-certified dermatologists, following the evidence-based care, was always met. It was an interesting conversation, and I know you'll enjoy it. So let's jump into the podcast. Well, Michael and Dr. Aaron Farberg, welcome to the podcast.
Excited to be here, Dr. Portela.
So for the audience, Dr. Farberg and I, we've known each other for several years now, and you run your own practice in Dallas, Texas. Got several locations from what I understand.
Yeah, it's been busy in the past few years. Have 10 offices open, a little bit more unique. We also have our own residency training program. So we have 9 residents that we're training to be the future of dermatology, as well as 2 large clinical trials units. So we've got 20 to 30 FDA studies going on at any given time. So we're preparing for the future, training the future, and also treating everyone currently.
Yeah, and one of your residents has been on this podcast, Dr. Smith, talking about his laser company. So you train him well over there.
Fantastic. Good to hear.
And then, Michael, give us a little bit of your background. You're not a physician, but you are in the business world, and kind of catch the audience up to speed a little bit on how you got to this point where you launched a telehealth company called Telehealth.
Sure. So my formal corporate background, I was on the investing side in consumer private equity. I think that's how I got my interest in consumer, really looking at these different businesses and looking at consumer psychology, what people thought about products, how you thought about brand. Getting into Telehealth was really a personal issue. I was patient zero. And so I was the guy who suffered with acne for over a decade, kind of tried everything from OTCs to antibiotics to crazy diets, and been to 5 different dermatologists. And it was the last one that actually put me on Accutane, which was the only thing that really cleared my skin. And kind of going through that whole process, going through the gauntlet, and then going through the Accutane process, it was a bit convoluted, a bit tedious, and just thought, could this be made a little bit more accessible, a little simpler for folks? And that was what kind of sparked the idea for Telehealth, where now we're this digital treatment platform that treats chronic skin conditions, starting with a focus on chronic and severe acne. And specifically, Accutane was our initial core focus. We've treated over 30,000 patients now, serve all 50 states, and helped a lot of people clear their skin.
Yeah.
So one thing I want to point out, Dustin, I mean, Michael, where were you when you went through these 5 dermatologists? Were you like in the middle of nowhere in Idaho?
No. So I grew up in the Northeast. So I was in Connecticut, and then I went to college in the South in North Carolina. So there's a couple derms up there and then down in the South. And then when I started work, it was in Georgia. And so that's where kind of the 5 dermatologists were. But it was really the last one that referred me to Accutane. None of the others actually brought it up to me because my acne was not really considered severe enough by a lot of standards. It was just really chronic and persistent, but more mild to moderate, which is why I think the previous dermatologist kind of didn't bring it up as an immediate option.
See, and this is something I wanted to bring up because I think it's really important. And I know, Dustin, you have a lot of different listeners I'm a little biased as a dermatologist, but a lot of dermatologists would think, well, this would never happen. There's no need, Well, it's not just an access thing. He's had dermatologists. He just wasn't getting to the right therapy quick enough. And so, this goes out to all my dermatology colleagues out there. This is an important story. There's a huge need here.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I'm curious, Michael, if you ever brought up Accutane, were you even familiar with it as a treatment option until you got to that last dermatologist?
I was. The first time that I heard about Accutane was actually through a high school friend when he told me about him being on this acne treatment that was essentially a cure for acne. And I didn't believe him. I thought there was no cure for acne. But Accutane is one of the only things that has long-term remission effects for acne. And I knew about it. I just heard all the stories of people getting these side effects, knew how to do blood work, this whole tedious process. And so, like a lot of other folks, I think that was the hesitation in starting and actually requesting it, because I would ask myself, do I actually want to go through this? What are the side effects? Is it actually going to impact me in that way? And so all these different things you hear about the drug, I think, impacted my decision to really bring it up to my dermatologist as an option as well.
Right. So it never became a conversation until that last dermatologist.
Correct. Yeah. Because at that point, I had tried pretty much every topical oral antibiotic, OTC products. I went vegan for a month. That didn't work. Just all these different things. And at that point, the dermatologist said, well, pretty much the only thing you haven't tried medically yet is Accutane.
Yeah. And it's difficult to understand, as Aaron kind of alluded to, is that nowadays I use Accutane. I prefer to use it over antibiotics in most cases if the patient is willing, but we still have dermatologists out in the world that don't even prescribe biologic medications for psoriasis. Thankfully, they're becoming fewer, but so comfortable at this point with Accutane that I know the risks and benefits over the long haul are generally more favorable for patients to just complete a course of Accutane if their acne is not responsive to the typical topical regimens that we use. So really this kind of set off to meet an kind of an unmet need to get more people access to Accutane who might not get that option for their from their dermatologist. Is that an accurate state?
For sure. I think what we hear from a lot of the patients, one of the statements we hear the most is, I wish I would have done this sooner.
Yeah.
And that's exactly my sentiment. I think there's so many patients out there who have gone through the same gauntlet that I went through and finally got on Accutane, and they missed out on years of life. It's acne is not just a physical condition. It's also a mental health one. We have an advisor on our advisory board who kind of studies the connection between acne and mental health. And it's shown that, especially in the adolescence years, just having acne is equivalent to the feelings of cyberbullying. Like if you have bad acne, people just feel bad about themselves. And for me, that was true. I would wear a hoodie all the time. And I think just not having clear skin, it impacts you more than just the physical on the face. It's such an emotional thing as well. I think just having a treatment that works and works most of the time, if that's a personal decision that you want to make, just giving folks that option, that education, that treatment alternative, that they know that this is an option that they can go on.
Yeah. And I'm curious how you two got connected to bring Dr. Farberg on as an advisor to Clear Health. My guess is that if you shop this around to 10 dermatologists, 9 of them would tell you it's impossible to do Accutane on telehealth. It just doesn't work with the iPledge system, which is a government mandated system to monitor for side effects and prevent pregnancy. So I'm curious how you guys got linked up and if you had pushback from other dermatologists or other advisors before launch.
Sure. So Dr. Farberg and I got connected through XRC Ventures, which was a startup accelerator that we went through. It was one of the partners there who kind of referred us and said, he's a really interesting guy, kind of into new ideas, willing to look at things that are a little bit innovative, that might be a little bit out of the scope of what other dermatologists, like you said, might not be willing to look at. And it was true. I DM'd a lot of dermatologists on Instagram, and most of them ghosted me. They didn't even give me feedback on whether or not to do it. Some of the dermatologists just came back to me and said exactly what you said. They said, this is impossible to do. and it's not something that should be done via telehealth or can be done via telehealth. And around the time that Dr. Farberg and I met and Telehealth was started, it was around the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was when things changed a lot too. And so it became a question of whether or not this could be done via telehealth. All of a sudden, all the dermatologist offices were doing Accutane via telehealth.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was really kind of what set off the chain of events where Clearhealth, the idea started to formalize and started to become a real entity.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun when he first approached me with the idea. Again, like many other just clinicians in general, there's no way you could do all this stuff online. The pandemic proved us all wrong. In fact, that you can do most everything online, and in fact, digitalizing this whole process actually makes, as you said, it's this governmental oversight of this medication. It's very onerous, very difficult, and so it's ripe for improvement. Look what's going on with our current administration trying to build on those efficiencies.
Mm-hmm.
But when I met Michael, we kind of plotted out the business plan, and I said, the only way we can do this is if we do better, meaning we already know what it's like to go into your board-certified dermatologist's office. We know what that process is like to get Accutane. You've been through it, Michael, through 5 dermatologists. We have to make a better product. We have to do a better service and help more people in a higher level of care. And so we kept very high standards, kept a very high, rigorous ethic. And I think that we did it. Hello, Clear Health. It's we're providing better care in many cases as what you would get in a dermatologist's office.
And now you've taken, did I hear you right, 30,000 people through a course of Accutane in a
Correct.
telehealth model?
More than that, yeah.
Yeah. Phenomenal. This is certainly an area where efficiency is needed. We all complain about the iPledge system, particularly if somebody misses their pickup window. There's so many hoops that people have to jump through. And so it's amazing that you guys were able to do this, but it's certainly time where it was needed to be done. We know that not everybody wants to take Accutane. There's still a lot of fear out there. And that kind of led you to another innovation that I want to talk about, which is something called IsoClear. And I'd love to have Aaron have you break down what is IsoClear and how does it work?
Well, first of all, everyone knows the name Accutane. That's the trade name that people know about. But isotretinoin is the actual drug. That's the actual molecule when we talk about Accutane. And again, usually everyone thinks of it as a pill. Then there are retinoids. There's tretinoin. That's what you'll use topically. Well, what about actually using isotretinoin as a topical? And it's an interesting story because it does exist. And, Michael's got even more details on this in different countries and different areas, but it just never really existed here in the USA. And, when I did some digging and trying to figure out, well, why is this the case? Well, it really is just a model of it was cheaper, easier to produce the tretinoin. Whereas the isotretinoin really is, it takes a little bit more work. It's a little bit more effort, kind of like digitalizing the iPledge oral isotretinoin product. Anything that's hard work is going to be worth it. So Michael, he'll tell the story too. He's gone through a lot of effort to create all the programming that was needed to create Clear Health. Then he also went through a huge effort to really source the isotretinoin to bring that on board here, the U.S. And really, the way it worked, it is similar to tretinoin, which a lot of people are familiar with, but there are differences. I mean, Dustin, you know that there's multiple drugs that will target the exact same pathway. Take psoriasis. We have 3 or 4 drugs for every pathway, and you might think, well, they all bind the same molecule, and they all work through the same pathway. So why is there many different kinds? Well, we know that it worked differently, and it worked differently in different patients. So isotretinoin is the acne drug. You said it's the cure for acne. It might be a little far-fetched, but it really is that good. So, I mean, it as a topical is going to be exactly what you need to really target the acne, and it does all the same things that tretinoin does too, with the wrinkles and skin, the turnover as well. But this mechanistically will really focus and act on the oil production. And as we all know, if you don't have the oil, the sebum, you're not going to have the acne.
Mm-hmm.
It's also interesting is it's been studied. In fact, it was fun looking back. Some of these studies, go back to as old as you and I are, Dusty. And they were done at, one of them was even at the University of Michigan. So go blue.
Go blue.
That's where I went. And there was even head-to-head too. And they actually showed a little less irritation with the topical isotretinoin. So again, you're getting all the benefits and more with hopefully a better safety and tolerability profile. So it just makes a lot of sense, and we're excited to bring it here to the US.
So you guys have created a compounded topical version of isotretinoin that, if you look at the molecular structure, looks very similar to tretinoin, slightly different, obviously, but that can be applied topically. Many people are familiar with the various strengths of tretinoin, your 0.025, 0.05, 0.1. Patients come in and ask for one or another, and they think they always got to go stronger. At what concentration is isotretinoin formulated? Is this custom between patients, or is everybody getting kind of the same concentration? And how do you think about that versus tretinoin?
Sure. So we start at 0.05%. That's the sort of model that's been used overseas as well as in clinical studies. That's the percentage that they used to study against tretinoin in a head-to-head, as well as the GSK product that used to exist in Europe as well. And so patients will start at that percentage because this is personalization. If there's irritation, which like Aaron alluded to, with isotretinoin, there's typically less than tretinoin. We can titrate it down to make sure that it fits the exact patient profile, which is the goal of what we're trying to do here, which is create personalized medicine that's designed for that specific patient, for their specific needs, which is also why IsoClear is designed as a 3-phase system. It's not just for the acne. There's also been studies, both domestically and overseas as well, that it has use cases in photoaging, anti-aging effects, fine lines, things of that nature. And so with IsoClear, we have a 3-phase system where the first phase is called clear. It focuses primarily on acne, getting people clear. After people clear up, the next phase is called fade, where we focus on dark spots, post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation, dark marks, getting the skin tone as even as possible. And the final one is renew, which is that anti-aging kind of fine lines and getting the skin quality as best as it can be.
And this is now a whole system. It's not just using a topical isotretinoin, but you're pairing it with other products, OTC style skincare that you've custom formulated to help to help make a complete routine for a patient.
So it's one prescription system. So they're getting essentially IsoClear as their monthly supply, but the formulation will change depending on where they are in their skincare journey, whether they want to focus on the dark marks, whether they want to focus on the anti-aging. The formulation in that bottle will change, but it is prescription grade ingredients in that bottle. And isotretinoin, because it has those multiple use cases from acne to anti-aging, throughout that journey, it's included as one of the actives throughout the IsoClear system.
And so when you're walking people through these different steps, what are you combining the isotretinoin topically with to help achieve those different ends? Are they things people are familiar with?
Sure. So we can start with the clear phase, which is the acne one. And with the clear phase, people will typically start out with isotretinoin and clindamycin. This is a combination that's been used overseas in several countries as well, in Europe and India, to pretty great effect. And one thing we do with the clear phase, because it's combined with the clindamycin, is if patients go beyond the 4-month mark in the clear phase and their acne hasn't cleared yet, then unless the dermatologist says otherwise, we default them to just the isotretinoin. So we take the clindamycin off to prevent the possibility of antibiotic resistance. So that's one way. And then in the fade phase, the isotretinoin is combined with tranexamic acid and niacinamide, ingredients that are used commonly in prescription skincare to focus on the dark marks and the uneven skin tone. And then in the final phase, the renew, it's isotretinoin in a base that contains copper peptide, GHKCU, which is very, very hot right now, for very good reason on its effect for skin elasticity, collagen production, and anti-aging effects. And so that's the last phase where we have a proprietary base that the ISO is combined with, because the ISO also has the anti-aging effects as well.
Very cool. Now, one question that may come up from other physicians that listen to this and consumers who are aware is the iPledge system is onerous. You have to go through the iPledge system to take oral isotretinoin if you're taking the pills. Is iPledge required when using it topically?
No. And so we I'll answer this two parts. So we confirmed with legal, and iPledge was written for the oral form of isotretinoin because of the risks to an unborn fetus. And for this in a topical form, we don't need the iPledge. You don't have to do the monthly blood work, the monthly pregnancy test, kind of go through the monthly check-ins. Although just like tretinoin, for patients who may become pregnant, are pregnant, breastfeeding, they still have to sign a waiver, and we'll basically stop them, because people aren't supposed to use tretinoin anyway when they are in those states. And it's the same with isotretinoin, even though in the studies, and there is a specific study showing the pregnancy risk with topical isotretinoin, where the level of it in blood plasma was effectively the same as taking a vitamin A supplement. So it's virtually nil.
Yeah.
But even with that being said, the way we treat it is kind of the safest way that we want to do the best that we can. And it's treating it just like tretinoin and saying, if you are going to become pregnant, you are pregnant or breastfeeding, you should stop use of the topical anyways.
Yeah. I think that perfectly answers it. And it's kind of what I assumed, is you wouldn't necessarily recommend it to somebody who's pregnant, but the risks are probably very small.
Well, we deal
when
with
someone
that
is
all
being
the time.
seen, yeah,
as dermatologists, right? Do as we say, not as we do. I know there's a lot of dermatologists that will still use their retinoids even when they're trying to get pregnant, or even, when they're pregnant, because we understand the systemic absorption is, really pretty much zero. But again, whenever you're dealing with pregnant patients, you don't want to risk anything. You'll always look back and, if something bad happens, blame, you'll look to blame something. And so, again, we're trying to do the absolute best thing here. And so,
yeah, totally get that. And I think it's important for the audience to know that there's no documented cases of birth defects for a male taking Accutane who's actively trying to conceive with their partner. Or even if their partner is pregnant. That's the data that I'm familiar with. I don't know if you're familiar with anything else.
It's a big zero.
Yeah. So one thing that I know is going on in the telehealth world is there's so many companies popping up right now. We see Super Bowl advertisements for some of them, for proprietary formulations, for whether it's skincare, hair care, sexual health and wellness. And people are signing up for monthly subscriptions, and they don't really know who's writing their prescription. Who is doing the work in all 50 states behind Clear Health? Who's evaluating the patients? Who's actually signing these prescriptions, reviewing the labs, so that patients understand who is actually seeing them when they're submitting these requests?
So I'd say this was at the very beginning when we created Clear Health, was one of the hard lines for me. We wanted to provide, better care than what's currently available. So when you reach out to somebody at Clear Health, you're going to be getting a prescription from a board certified dermatologist. And that's where we're at. Again, we also provide, the mental health backup as well, which, most dermatologist offices aren't able to do. We also, we have patients go through depression scales as well, just for extra safety and security. We have other systems to ensure that all the processes are running correctly. Nobody's, faking their iPledge or pregnancy tests. At one point, when it was all via digital, you could just do an at-home pregnancy test. So we go really above and beyond to ensure that we're providing these patients with the best care. And, board certified dermatologist, that's you and me, Dustin.
Yeah. Yeah. And I really admire you guys for sticking to that standard, because most of the telehealth companies out there are not. You don't know who you're seeing. I have patients that will bring their custom formulations in when their treatment is no longer working. I'll look at the bottle, and this is not meant to disparage anybody, but it's not a board certified dermatologist that has evaluated them and written these prescriptions. And, it's no wonder to me that they're not quite getting what they need. And so I think that's important. I do want you to elucidate a little bit more on this mental health backup, because we talked prior to this conversation, Aaron, about kind of these extra safety protocols that you have, which is not something that my office has, or any real in-person office that I'm aware of. So talk about kind of the helpline that's available if your patients need it.
Sure. So I can speak to this one. It's every patient actually goes through a PHQ-9 depression screen. And to my knowledge, that's the only sort of standard depression screening that's been documented as something that should be included with isotretinoin. So that's the standard that we use. And if they answer a certain score, they're actually flagged in our system, and it's actually flagged to the doctor. And so the doctor actually knows right away that, okay, they scored differently from last time. There's an elevation or otherwise. So that's from the screening process. And then if patients are experiencing any types of side effects while they are on treatment, we have a 24/7 nurse line where they can call in at 3 a.m. and get on the phone with an RN and talk through their symptoms and side effects. And the nurse will triage it. If they can kind of just solve it right there, which is the vast majority of cases, it's just done over the phone. But if necessary, they can also kind of initiate calls to emergency services as well, which is one of the options. But we do have a 24/7 nurse line that's staffed by RNs, where if anybody wants to call in anytime at night, they can talk to somebody.
Yeah. And that's very robust. And I think an important thing when you guys are kind of trailblazing, I know that you've had some backlash or some pushback from the dermatology community to a degree. And I think that you've shown with over 30,000 patients now that their concerns are, maybe a little overblown.
Yeah. Well, I get it. At first, it's the knee-jerk reaction of, oh, what are they doing? Are they even taking away, patients? No, absolutely not. Like I said from the start, we're going to do this, and we're going to do this even better than what the currently available model is. And as long as we stay true to that and true to ourselves, then we're going to be just fine. And so it's just like any other physician that's opening up an online practice as well. We're just making sure we make ours a cut above the.
As we look into the future, you guys are trailblazing. Where do you think that telehealth and the demand for online services goes from here?
I think we're in the early innings, to be honest. We've seen kind of the explosion with GLP-1s, just with 2 of them. And now we have the FDA basically saying, well, there's 10 peptides that they're gonna reclassify. And I think there's been several studies on sort of the benefits of these peptides, and been blowing up all over social media. I think there's definitely the consumer demand for these items, and the knowledge of them is kind of being disseminated across social media. And so the consumer demand wave is certainly there. I think the telehealth infrastructure has definitely matured, where a lot more physicians now that I come across, they are practicing telehealth versus maybe pre-COVID. And so kind of that convergence, we're just going to see more and more of that become the standard, where I think most conditions that don't necessarily require an in-person visit, where there has to be some kind of physical procedure, will probably move to telehealth is my guess.
Yeah. And I'm noticing that, within my own practice, that we don't do telehealth directly out of the practice. I have a separate telehealth platform that I work on. But more and more of our patients are asking if they can just do a call for their follow-up and do these things. And I know the reality is that in many cases that would be sufficient. It's just not feasible to offer that right in our practice. And so it's something I think we'll continue to see the demand for. So if there's somebody out there listening to this, they're not satisfied in their acne journey, and they're interested in learning about Clear Health, where's the best place for them to go? And then I'd also love to know how you triage people between IsoClear, the topical version, and oral Accutane. But let's start with, how do you find Clear Health?
Sure. So they can go online, www.helloclearhealth.com. Click on Start a Visit, can create an account, and basically answer some questions, get connected to a board-certified dermatologist. We typically turn cases around in less than 24 hours. So very, very quickly versus, oftentimes people are waiting months to kind of get into their local office. And so that's the way that they can reach us. It's all online. And for the question of the difference between IsoClear and oral Accutane, which might be more appropriate for the patient, as they go through the intake, there's certain questions that we'll ask that kind of triage patients one way or the other. Although I will say one of the key things that we do at Clear Health is we always like to present all the options to the patients. We don't like to say, like, this is the only thing that probably will work for you. We like to say, well, there's this, there's also this, and here's the risks and benefits. It's really a personal decision, because at the end of the day, for a patient, it's their acne, it's how they feel about it. The severity is, there's an objective grade scale, but somebody's mild acne might feel severe to them. And so we'd like to present, maybe oral Accutane for some people who just have mild acne. Somebody might look at that and say, that's not the right thing to do. But for that patient, it could be what they need for their particular life, what they want. And so we kind of give folks the option and present all the different treatment alternatives to them. And some of the questions that we use to kind of triage between the two is whether, they're okay with going on a systemic medication, kind of presenting the risks and benefits of going on oral Accutane, the side effects, the fact that they have to do blood work, whether they've tried topicals before and failed topicals, or whether or not they've tried tretinoin and it's been too irritating for them. And so IsoClear might be a potential option for them. We kind of use these different angles where there's patients that come in and they all have different needs. They all have kind of different needs that they need for treatment for their specific use case. We give them a recommendation, but then at the end of the day, we show them all the options so they can make the best decision for themselves.
Hopefully that sounds familiar. That's how we're teaching residents nowadays. And I think it's important, particularly, my training in New York City, you have people with just, one or two pimples, but it's extremely impactful on their lives. And then you have other people with very severe acne, and they'll say, no, I don't want to, I'd rather start with a top. So it really is a personalization. And as you know, it's difficult to take all the time in the world and have these long discussions with patients, but a lot of them come in educated. And so we're able to educate them even more online, digitally, on their own time to help them make, the right choice, the best choice for them. And hopefully they don't have to go through that therapeutic ladder that we're all taught in medical school, that you have to go through and fail a variety of different treatments before you can get to perhaps the right one. And you should have leapt over a few of those. And so it's a great opportunity to get the right treatments for the right patients sooner.
Yeah. Well, for the audience, I took Accutane as a dermatology resident. I was one of those people who always had 2 or 3 pimples, just all the time. And I just did not want to be treating other people's acne when I had even very mild acne. So I took Accutane as a resident, and I ended up only doing 4 months. I didn't even complete the whole course because I matched as a bone marrow donor, and I had to be off of Accutane for a couple of months before I could donate bone marrow. And my acne never really came back, even with a shorter than average course. So it's something that I prescribe every day in the clinic. My wife has been on it. I've been on it. I would not hesitate to put my kids on it if they started to get moderate acne or acne that was very impactful to their mental health. So I'm excited about what you guys are doing as a team. Encourage patients, if they have difficulty, getting the kind of treatment that they need from their local dermatologist, to certainly check out helloclearhealth.com and see if a treatment plan that fits them better could be available. Thank you to the audience for joining us on this episode, talking with Dr. Aaron Farberg and Michael Chang about their company, Clear Health. They are revolutionizing acne treatment with both oral and now topical isotretinoin. Really market leaders and groundbreaking pioneers in this space. Topical isotretinoin is well studied and used in other countries, but has never really become mainstream in the United States. So this presents a new treatment opportunity. And if you're interested in exploring, once again, check out helloclearhealth.com. Thank you for listening to this episode, and leave us a 5-star review wherever you listen to podcasts, and share this episode with a friend, and we'll see you next week.